for anybody to see this afterwards, we ask please use one of these microphones. We have this wireless microphone, so please raise your hand, and that way the people online and in the recording can hear our voices. Thank you.
Hello. Hi. Thanks everyone for being here. I'm Pia. I'm the executive director at Leeway. Wanted to say welcome and thanks to the ICA staff for all their help supporting this panel. I am not going to get into the depths of LTA and what the Transformation Award is. Our panelists and moderator are going to talk about that. But just wanted to say thanks for being at the event. Again, thanks to the ICA. Thanks to the Leeway staff for all your work to organize this. Thanks to our panelists, and I'm going to hand the mic over to Maori, who is the Chief Executive and Artistic Officer at Blackstar, a former Leeway Transformation Awardee, former Leeway staff member, and also our board co-chair. So if you have questions, and former ICA staff member. So if you have questions about anything that might happen in Philadelphia, past, present, or future, please ask Maori because she is the expert in the room. But seriously, this, as you guys know, if you have an interest in the grant, this is kind of a special application. It's a special award. We really want to be able to support the process as much as possible. So for anyone in the room who's interested in applying, and if you have, we'll have time for questions after, but if you have questions about the grant, if you want to follow up with us, find us after the event. We'll be hovering around as we clean up, or please be in touch with our staff so we can help support you through the process.
Thank you, Pia. So Pia just introduced me, but my name is Maori. I use she, her pronouns. And I received the Transformation Award in 2006. And I have received 3 Art and Change grants. And I was on staff at Leeway between 2007 and 2014. First as a communications director and then as associate director, and have been on the board since 2024, and currently am co-chair. So very happy to be here. I wanted to give you an overview of who Leeway Foundation is and what we do. Leeway Foundation supports women, trans, and gender nonconforming artists and cultural producers working in communities at the intersection of art, culture, and social change. Through grant making, we promote artistic expression that amplifies the voices of those on the margins, promote sustainable and healthy communities, and work in the service of movements for social justice. Leeway is a trans-affirming organization committed to gender self-determination, so when we use the term trans, we mean it in its most inclusive sense, as an umbrella term for anyone whose gender identity or gender expression is non-conforming and or different from their gender assigned at birth. Leeway supports women, trans, and gender nonconforming artists living in the greater Philadelphia area. This includes Bucks, Camden, Chester, Delaware, Montgomery, and Philadelphia counties. These grants are for individual artists, not for organizations, but collectives are welcome to apply, and we can talk about what the difference between a collective and an organization is. Leeway funds all different kinds of artistic practices, traditional and non-traditional, and decisions are made by a rotating peer panel of community-based artists and cultural producers. The Transformation Award is an unrestricted award of $15,000 to women, trans, and gender nonconforming artists and cultural producers who create art for social change and have done so for the past 5 years or more, demonstrating a long-term commitment to social change work. The Transformation Award is not a project-based grant for work that you want to do, but instead is an award recognizing the work that you have already done. Usually the Transformation Award is given out to around 10 to 12 individuals a year. It is a 2-stage process. The deadline for stage 1 for this year is May 15th. Usually somewhere around 100 people apply to stage 1. Out of that batch, up to 30 people are invited to return to stage 2. If you progress to stage 2, there is a stage 2 application that requires work samples. Before we dive into our conversation, I want to ask attendees to hold your questions until the end of the session. There will be time for a brief Q&A with the artist at the end. Attendees can also reach out to Leeway staff directly at info@leeway.org with any questions or concerns. There are hard copy applications on the table outside of the auditorium, and attendees can register for one-on-one applicant support by visiting the Leeway website. So, welcome to our panelists. Can each of you share with us who you are, your pronouns, and a little bit about yourself and your artistic practice? And we'll start with you, Debbie.
Hi, my name is, am I supposed to look any place for a camera? My name is Debbie Davis, and I am a wife, a mother, an activist, and I've been an activist for over 50 years. Upon being released from prison in 2018, which was connected to my activism, I decided to return my attention to returning citizens. Turning my attention to returning citizens, myself and my husband created a film called A New Voice, and this just pretty much highlighted people who were returning from prison, who were just contributing to the community. They were uplifting people. They were actually, proving the responsibility of what they have gained. So we highlighted these things in the film. I am also a community wellness coach, a trained doula, and a pre- and postnatal coach. And I am so honored to receive this award today. Thank you.
Wow, Debbie, you're very cool. My name is Nia Benjamin. I use they, them pronouns. I am primarily a director of theater and dance. My work uses dance and poetry and live music and theater and video arts. I'm also a video artist to tell stories about Black and brown, queer and trans people, and our sovereignty, our autonomy, being sort of the keepers of our own stories. And I am also the co-founder and co-artistic director of a performance company here in Philly that I've been running for 8 years now, called Ninth Planet. It's just me and my one friend. And we produce work and we make original work with our communities, people who reflect us. And I'm really honored to be here. Yeah.
You're cool.
You have a mic.
No, thank you though. That's the muscle. Yeah. You're both very cool, and I'm honored to be here. I'm Connie. I use they them pronouns. My practice takes place in writing and in printmaking of some sort. I also work in publishing. I'm primarily interested in self-publishing, and I also run a collective called Fortune, which we do our work in producing programs, public programs, but also in producing publications and expanding access to print resources. And our audience is primarily queer and trans Asian people or people who live in diaspora. I've had the pleasure of receiving an Art and Change grant from Leeway in 2019, and just beginning with gratitude for Leeway and all you do.
The Stage 1 LTA application does not ask for traditional artist CV or resume or even work samples. Instead, Leeway asks for something called an experience page, where applicants can list anywhere between 4 to 10 personal, professional, and political experiences that have shaped them as an artist and led them to this point in their art for social change practice. How did each of you approach this part of the application? Do you want to start, Connie?
Sure, yeah. Well, I think this is a unique part of a grant application that Leeway has been doing for many years. That you don't need to show a certain form of or a certain form or pedigree. That you get to give your own words and definition to the things that have shaped you and to the people who've touched you, and where that sounded funny, but you know what I mean, yeah. The communities that have, you know, sort of shaped you, and getting to like have sort of a free space to define the importance of all of those things is kind of a blessing and an opportunity. In approaching it, I think I wanted to share a bit of the breadth of practice, that it doesn't just happen on the page, but also in all these different spaces. Here's how I collected the people that I now call home. Here's how I've begun this practice. And then, you know, editing it into sort of a, I won't say linear, but also something with a bit of a thrust, with you know, here's how these layers have accumulated. Yeah.
Yeah, I think something that I was thinking about was throughout the whole application is like, why do I do what I do? And not just like, what have I done, and listing those things off. So with the application or the experience page portion of the application, I tried to think of like, what were moments, either personal or professional or even internal, that kind of like flicked the switch on for me to be like, oh, this is why I want to work in this way with these people. And like, for example, I mentioned like being there when my grandmother passed away, because that was a moment where I was like, oh, my relationship to my own story of like my family changed, you know what I mean? And this desire to really capture moments like that in a way that other people can see themselves in, you know, felt really important. And so, yeah, just if you're applying, yeah, think of the things that really stick out to you in your head, like Connie said too, and not just like accolades that you think an organization might want to see.
Yeah, I, like you said, it was like a blessing, because I don't have a lot of technical skills as far as, you know, education-wise and things like that. So it was really easy for me, but I was happy because, I mean, it's like my whole life pretty much stood out. And it was so like the examples, I think I filled up the whole thing from 1 to 10. Each example was something that really stood out to me from the beginning, from 1974 to 1975 to 19... And so it was like just listing those examples. I wanted to say so much more, but it gave me an opportunity to really to go kind of into my life and the background and all the work that I had done, not by myself, of course, but it gave me the opportunity to express that and really list it. Like, yeah, this is what's happening. This is what brought me to the artistic stage that I've created. That's what brought me to it. So, you know, like the things that stood out to me, different things like, you know, giving birth to my son in prison and a jail cell. Like those things really stood out, or just standing on the platform and just taking a stand against injustice, or, you know, against the prison injustice when they were spraying women down with hoses, you know. So these are the things that really stood out, but they really helped me just to like really bring it out, and it felt good, kind of felt really good.
Thank you for sharing that. This application is a very personal and vulnerable process, and thank you for sharing what you shared on the page. What did you all indicate as your social change intents on the application? How did you talk about how your work engaged with those intents and issue areas? And whoever wants to go first can.
For me, the film that we created, A New Voice, pretty much, the first film that we did was, it was more of a personal story about our lives and what, you know, what we had been through, which meant, you know, like for those who don't know, it was just like a stand that we took against police brutality and some other social ills, and it ended up in a standoff, you know, with the police, and a police officer was killed, and it was just very unfortunate. But it was more so our personal journey and what we had, my husband and I had gone through, you know, in the MOVE organization, and so that was more like a personal story. But the second one was more of just, and the film pretty much speaks for itself as far as highlighting the works that returning citizens had done and is still doing, contributing to the community, as I said, and engaging with them. It's like the intent was there, the engagement was there, just going to Pittsburgh or just going to Trainer, PA, or just interacting with them personally on a personal level. And it wasn't just a film, wasn't just storytelling, it was a personal, intimate conversation, bringing out each and every one of their stories, the resilience and the commitment and the willingness, the determination that they had to do either the right thing or to do what they felt like they needed to do to contribute to the community, to society. And so that was just also personal, and so the intent was just, that was the purpose, just bringing that out, and so that audience people could see it, so that officials could see it, so that policy makers, officials could appreciate, like, you know, and really understand, like, this is what's happening. And this is what's continuing to happen with people that are, with our friends, anyway, with our friends that are coming from prison and that are really trying to connect and give back.
I think I know this only because I reviewed the application on my way here, but the social change intents I had put down were cultural preservation, I think, and also, correct me if I'm wrong, Mary, because you might have the notes, sort of queer and trans self-determination. And I knew that in the application I would be talking a lot about my collective work with Fortune, and those are primarily our intents there. So I think a lot of the storytelling parts of the application were also to share more about how I got to Fortune and how it then has shaped me. So when I think also the Leeway application asks this question in many different ways. You know, you're asked to cut the, you know, your approach to social change. You know, give a sort of evolution of the last 5 years, but then also give examples, and then also say how that has become actionable for you. You know, so having to put words to it in so many different ways. There's a bit of pacing and a bit of like reflection that happens to get there. Maybe I'll pause there, Nia, if you want to jump in.
I think you both have pretty much said what I would say. I think, yeah, I just keep coming back to this, like, why. Like, the question of why is, like, something I just kept asking myself. And so, yeah, I think I chose racial justice, transgender self-determination, and also LGBTQA social movements. And so I thought a lot about the stories I had already told, which are, I think, often, like, it starts with myself and questions I have about myself and the world I'm in, and then I'm like, who can I work this out with? And it's people in my direct community. So I feel like I selected those things because I was like, well, those are the conversations I'm having when we're making work together, and I also think that's what audiences see us grappling with when they come to see our work. So it was pretty easy. I know that's not always the case, though, you know, and figuring out how to narrow down your priorities or your concerns as an artist into, I think you're only allowed to select up to 3 of them, right? So into 3 categories. So yeah, just like, what is the thing that simmers up to the top for you the most that you think you keep coming back to? Yeah.
Thank you for that. Some people think this award is only for established artists who have been doing this work for decades, and that emerging or younger artists need not apply. This isn't the case. The youngest recipient has been 19. The oldest has been 91. As long as you've been doing your art for social change work for 5 years or longer, you're eligible to apply for the LTA. Can any of you talk about the process of applying as an emerging or mid-career artist and what inspired you to apply? And if you consider yourself established, how did you capture the breadth and depth of your work in the application? Do any of you consider yourself established? We could start there.
No, I don't. I also think those terms can be relative because I think a lot of this application too is about claiming your practice and what you've done. And so I feel even if you have only been practicing your art form for 5 or 7 years, like the application asks you to think about what you think your impact is. And so, yeah, I think it was more about a couple people told me I should apply, to be totally honest. And I know of Leeway. I also used to work at Leeway back in the day. I'd never applied for an art change grant before. I think I felt like I wasn't allowed to, sort of. So I think it was just coming to a place of feeling strong enough in my ability to articulate what I do, and being able to like stand on that with evidence and with storytelling through this application to feel ready to apply. Yeah.
Well, I feel pretty established as an activist. As a filmmaker, I'm still trying to, it was encouraged. It was encouraged from the beginning by a sister named Jennifer Bennett. And she was the one that said, you guys, after hearing our story, she said, you guys need to write a book. And she said, better yet, she said, no, I'm going to take you somewhere where you can do a film. And she took us to Scribe Video Center right down here in Philadelphia. And that night, Louis Messiah worked with us, and he threw us into class pretty much. It was amazing, but he put us in the class that had already started. We had absolutely no skills in anything, didn't even know how to use a cell phone after being in prison 40 years. Was pretty much like really ignorant to everything. But from there, that's when Jen Bennett was the one that actually said, you know what, you should put in for a grant. She didn't say the transformation grant at that point, but she said, Leeway is a really good foundation to go to. Their grants are very easy. So, because at the time we were really struggling for resources and things like that, and for our families, that helped us out with housing and so forth. But we still needed to eat, and we still needed to, do the things to keep ourselves alive. So she said, so I tried out for the, I think it was the Art and Change grant, which I did get, and then the community fund, which would allow me to either pay a bill or, get food. And then from there, I kind of kept looking into it and saying, you know what, I should probably try. I was going to do it the 1 year, and then I was going to do it the second year. But although I'm an established activist for all these years, I still couldn't. I had to put together the art that connected to the activism, but the art hadn't been done in those 5 years. So I just kind of had to wait and then wait it out. And the previous director really, really helped me out. And so with Melissa Hamilton, and so many others just really helped me out with the whole thing, the process. If you plan to apply, just make sure you go, get on those sessions that you have, that they're available to you, because they really did help too. And Gabe, thank you, everybody was really, really supportive in it.
Yeah, I agree with what both of you are saying. One, that I received a lot of encouragement actually from Leeway people to apply, and then on the other end, actually applying, receiving a lot more support to get there. So that, I think, kept me at it. I think also, honestly, I think materially, I was sort of at a bit of an inflection point where I was like, I really do want to devote more time to this art, and here is one way to try for it. So that was a piece of the timing too.
I'm sorry, Sheena Sood. Also, she was also a recipient from the transformation, and she helped me too a lot.
Whether it's your audience or your co-collaborators, each of you describes building community very intentionally in your applications. Can you speak to how building community plays a part in your overall artistic practice and how you wrote about it to share with the audience?
I guess I can start. I think what I do as a theater maker is collaborative. I'm not a playwright. I don't write anything by myself. I direct stories, but I co-create them with a group of people. So my community is directly necessary for the work that I do. I can't do it in a vacuum, and I don't desire to. So I think I talked in the application not just about that, but how I seek people out, which is a lot of my work has been kind of going against the ways that traditional performance in theater has been produced. I don't hold auditions. I don't work inside of professional theaters. I go through word of mouth, or I start with my friends, which can be complicated. But I start with people I know, and we just talk about our concerns and about the world we're living in, and we find natural synergy. And then I'm like, do you want to do this? This is going to be really hard and require a lot of you. And if they say yes, we go down that journey together. So yeah, it's a very intuitive and community-led way of building ensembles. And I made sure to talk about that. And if anyone is listening or watching who is making theater, I think that's a really important part, or making performance, of applying for this grant, is talking about yourself in relationship to the people you're making work with, and not just your work alone, because theater is, and performance of all types, is inherently a communal process. And I think I learned that through feedback sessions with people, and just saying, really remember that part. You know, it's not just you, and differentiating your process from the people you're working with. Yeah.
Kind of the same way. I just, we interacted with these people. First of all, we knew the people that we did interview. We know them personally. Either my husband knew them or I knew them. And so just interacting with them, getting interviews with them, sitting down there with them for hours at Scribe Video Center in some of the settings, and in our home, and going to their homes. And so the community, the communication with and engaging with them, that was most of our community, because that's what we did the work on. The film was about them. But we did also engage with other community, because on the first film we collaborated with Crystal Strong, who's from Black Lives Matter, and she really, really put a lot of energy and effort into helping us, like I said, because we didn't know anything about technology, the way it is now. And then just, Mike Jr. and our community, when we would go down to places that we needed to film, just having to engage with those people and telling them what we were doing and why we were doing it, and then just getting the feedback from them and hearing them say how awesome it was. So that was just really good encouragement for us. But and also engaging with people that like our community at Scribe Video Center, and other filmmakers like Ming Media, who also just kind of wrapped the whole thing in a bow. It was just a lot of good community and a lot of good engagement. And it also helped us personally with just kind of coming back into society, because it was a deep thing, coming back after that long and just having to, it wasn't an easy process. So that also helped us in a personal way also.
Yeah, I imagine that coming back to community after so much time away, you're also thinking so much more about what shapes that, or what makes it so, yeah. But I like how both of you describe community as like something that begins with people that you know. It's been a similar experience for me too. Here, I think I talked about collective process quite a bit. When I started Fortune, it was with two other people who shared some identities with me, and we also were just beginning to form this thing together. And since then, it's been over 7 years now, and has also changed shape. I think the process of doing that work collectively or by consensus was a way of modeling a form of community. And then that has also brought in other people too, other public programs, this kind of thing. Since we work in print and programs, we've talked about, creating space both on the page and in real time, and yeah, I think with some of our programs are recurring, like we host a Lunar New Year party every year, and because they recur, because there's a chance to iterate and do it again and take feedback and be responsive, that's another way of bringing community and community into the process, I think.
I want to pivot just a little bit and get into the technical aspects of the application. And when you all move from stage 1 to as you finish stage 1, you submit it, and thinking you might be invited to stage 2, what were you thinking about would be your work samples? Do you remember?
Oh yeah, I remember. Yeah, because I had my one work sample was my other film, and also just examples for when Leeway asks for specific things. They talk about work samples, but they kind of give examples of or some of the feedback from the sessions that we had, would just ask for feedback for like what have you done, where have you been, and gave examples about what would be expected. So of course I knew the first film would be too, but just gave examples about places that we have gone and spoken at, in particular college campuses or other just event venues, and just giving some of the examples of that kind of feedback. Like when we went to NYU Law, and the students they said that was just one of the best class or events that they had ever had since going and being in that particular class. And so just giving that kind of feedback. So I would just I think I overdid it. I was trying to give quotes from different people, but because I didn't know what to expect. I didn't know what to expect. So that's what I did. I just kind of gave some quotes that would lend to the authenticity and the justification as to why I was putting in this grant. So yeah, that was, I knew what I was going to do.
It takes me a long time to make work, so it takes me like 2 years, maybe 3 years to make shows. So I only had like 4 or 5 options. But I think when I was thinking about it again, like what's the through line between my stage 1 and stage 2 application, and making sure that the priorities, which like Connie said, you're asked the same question in a myriad of ways a few times, but just making sure that by the time, if I got to stage 2, they got to my work samples, they would see my priorities and the things that I value very clearly in the work samples I submitted. So I think it's kind of like fact checking yourself, you know what I mean? Like, can you see my social change intents or my vision in the work sample I submitted? And if the answer is no, like maybe reconsider. And also like ask for feedback. Like I asked friends that I knew who had seen my shows, like, do you think this shows like what I can do artistically, but also my sort of priorities politically and socially? And if they said yes, I was like, okay, that's the right choice.
Right, yeah. I mean, both of these are kind of creative ways of showing like kind of live work or work that happens in space, like we are visiting a classroom, like how to bring that into one sample, So I think testimonials is kind of brilliant, I think I ran against like, I'm trying to show these different formats. I don't have, just still images. What's the best way to show this documentation where like someone on the other end can feel it, Also, because I think I was applying like as multidisciplinary or something, like figuring out the balance of like how much time-based media versus how much still stuff. That's when Leeway staff really helped me out in terms of, figuring out that constellation of work sample.
And I know this isn't a workshop, which I used to lead, but your answer, Nia, made me think. I used to recommend that you show work samples and your application not to friends, but to like family, like people who have no idea what you do, but who you can trust to hold your application, and ask them what they get from it. Because your friends have probably gone to your performances, but people who don't have any sort of sense, because you never know who's gonna be on the panel, they are often from out of town. So like all of the context of things that you might be expecting, people know X, Y, and Z, they don't know. So you have to really make sure it's clear and articulate. And so like send it to your depending on how close you are to your mom, send it to your mom. And if she gets it, then, you know, it could be interesting.
Yeah, I did my son because he's the most critical.
Okay.
If you get a 90% from him, you are really in, and he doesn't care whether it's from your mother, your father. Definitely there.
Virgo. Can you all share your experience receiving feedback from the panel? Was it helpful? Was it hurtful in the stage 2 process?
Definitely encouraging and helpful for me, because I was just, when I read that, you know, the feedback, I was like, oh my God. And I'm like, Mike, look, look. And I was just so excited because I guess I had just worked so hard, you know, I guess from all the years of just working, period, and just, it really did, it was like connected, but it kind of came out in that. It came out in that, and just so the feedback was really, really helpful and just really, really encouraging and motivating, and just, yeah, I was definitely very happy.
Yeah, affirming, so affirming. You know that yeah, what you're putting down is being picked up. That's really all I have to say about that.
I think, like, if anything, it could give you clues as to what they were really gravitating, like what was resonating with the panel in your stage 1 feedback. Because I think it's hard to talk about your whole artistic practice. So when they say things that are like, oh, I really loved this part of the application, or that, like, that you should, I think of as a strength, and like try to make sure you really pull on that that thread, you know, further in your stage 2 application.
Can you talk about anything you found challenging about the LT application process? Or also if there was anything that you found particularly easeful?
I think for me, somewhat a little bit, the question sometimes was a little challenging for me, because it just, when I talked to Melissa Hamilton about it, and when it was like 3 and 4 questions in the one question, I got a little confused. And she said, no, you don't have to answer each one of them, because that's what I was doing. I was trying to answer each one in that particular, but they were just giving examples about, like, kind of like to make it clear what. So I found myself kind of searching for, what are they looking for? What do they want to know? Why, you know? And so that was a bit challenging for me. So I would go to my intellectual husband and say, oh, honey, what did they mean by this? And so, but that was the most challenging part for me. And as far as the application, I had some challenging moments myself personally, putting things of my personal experience on paper. But for the application, that was the most challenging. Yeah.
Yeah, it is challenging to try to sum up so much, 5+ years of work and life for application. It doesn't feel like nearly enough space, you know, and also to try to draw a through line, it can also feel limiting, I think, but I think resting on at the point that you're applying, you've already done at least 5 years of work. You've already picked up so many, textures of life, and been a part of many communities likely, and being able to speak to little bits of that is something that I think the Leeway application allows in the experience page, and then through answering these questions in multiple formats. But that also, what was a difficult part is to try to describe, and then describe again, and then describe differently a third way why these intents matter to you. So, and then if you get to stage 2, you're describing that again in different words, you know. So, it did really feel like a practice of framing out some of the work and leaving some for the next question, you know. It helped to think that because the questions are quite sincere, and because Leeway staff is quite involved in the process too, trusting that the readers, whoever the readers are, if they're brought into the fold, are reading your work, all the vulnerability that you're putting on the page with some amount of sincerity, and so that you can also be somewhat sincere in your responses. Yeah.
Yeah, and I don't know, I have written grants for a long time for my work outside of this. So if you're another person like that, just like a reminder to sound like yourself and not sound like institutional grantee speak. And I think that was the biggest challenge, was like, I'm so used to writing in a specific voice, but now I want to sound like I'm communicating my priorities to a group of people who don't care about how well I can speak grant speak, you know what I mean? And so that was a lot of actually iterating and being like, that's actually not what I mean. I'm using a bunch of filler words, you know, like just get to the core of what I'm actually trying to say. Yeah.
I really appreciate that. All three of you have different kinds of challenges, right? Which kind of shows that other people will. Did any of you apply for LTA before and not get it? Or did you all get it on your first application?
No, I never applied. But the first application,
Yeah.
the first application is when I got it. Yeah.
Okay. Well, just for people in the audience, if you're going to apply, people don't always get it because there's limited spots, and you should never take that as discouragement. There are people who applied 3 times, 4 times, 5 times, and then got it because the panel's different every time. So it is a brand new application, and you kind of have to treat it as such because the people reading it, to your point, are different. So just want to share that tidbit. We have one more question for you all, and then open it up to the audience. Is there anything that you want to share that I didn't ask you that you think would be helpful to folks as they're putting together their applications? To Leeway or to other people? Yeah.
Like, don't rush. I think just don't rush yourself in figuring out how to talk about your whole life and practice, and give yourself time. I would schedule like every other day an hour of time block. I didn't always stick to it, but just having the constant reminder so I wouldn't push it to the last minute, so that I could really make sure I was thinking and feeling into what I meant to say on the page. Sounds like a given, but I think it's easy to get overwhelmed and push it off and push it off. So the more you're able to just sit with yourself and I think the better it will go for you. Yeah.
Yeah. Go ahead.
I think that the application is split into 2 stages too. I'm sure there's usefulness on the Leeway back end for that, you know, but also like that. But you are made to pace yourself a little bit and like revisit your earlier language when you're putting together your work samples. So that can be a tool too. The tip I think is that if you're also working collectively, or if a lot of your social change happens as part of a collective, I had to really figure out how to take myself and put it next to the we, because often, as Nia mentioned, I'm applying for lots of grants for my collective, and often saying we do this, we did that, but thinking about my particular role in the work, that is a challenge too, but I think is a necessary framing device for an application like this.
I would say the one thing that really helped me a lot was when I got the feedback from some of the Leeway staff or a previous LTA grantee, was they want to know you. They want to get to know who you are, because these people don't know you. They don't know us. So in applying for the grant, it's hard for people to know who you are through paper and pen. So you want to give, especially in the experience page, which is what I did. In the experience page, you have those 10 experiences that you can put down. They want to know who you are, what you're doing. So that's just an opportunity in that space to tell them, other than just the short bio, is who you are. So that really helped me be able to put it into perspective and to just go through, okay, I'm just going to go through my life and just let them know, like through these examples. And also, don't wait till the last minute to put in your application, because it's either online or you can bring it down to the office. But because if you have anything, you know, that you might have forgot or whatever, you want to give yourself some hours, at least hours, to, you know, have to go back and, you know, and put it in if you need to. Those would be my, and then make sure you listen to the sessions that you have, because they really do help, and they are important. I think that's about it.
Thank you all. Do we have any questions from the audience? Yeah, sure.
Can you guys speak to the impact the award has had on either your practice or your trajectory as an artist?
The impact that our practices, that the award has had, okay. Well, the impact, I know the impact the award has had on me was very, very, it was rewarding. It was rewarding, number one. And so it was just, it really helped me in a lot of ways financially also, because just coming, you know, I have no Social Security. We don't have any, really no, I mean, medical, we don't have any of that because we were away so long. So that just really helped me financially. And the impact was just so, it was strong because, well, it hit me that way because I guess I just really never got anything like that. You know what I mean? I never really got anything to that magnitude, even though it's money, but it's just the whole acknowledgement of it, just the acknowledgement of your work, the acknowledgement of your activism. And I mean, the art that was created from my activism was, you know, was what had to get me the award, but it was my activism, I think, that really made me feel the gratitude of it. I felt like it was being acknowledged, like after, finally. And yeah, so that's kind of how it impacted me.
I guess I think you kind of mentioned this, but although I run a company, I also have like 3 other jobs. I'm sure this is like not a solitary story in the room, but so just to be able to honestly invest not only in my work but in myself as a person, and you know, I had a lot of debt, just transparently, and I was like, I really want to get rid of this, and I can't with what I'm making right now, you know. So just thinking about the ways that I could set my future self up better to be able to sustain this practice was really big for me. And yeah, just personal things that I felt like I had never been able to prioritize, because working in the way I did was always my priority. So yeah, it's acknowledgement, and also like realizing that, to your point, I am an I behind a we of work, and the I deserves just as much support as the we. Yeah.
Yeah, really feel both those responses. Yeah, the acknowledgement is huge. I think also, I also am a person who works multiple part-time jobs and gigs, and I was able to let go of one part-time job this year, and because brain is a little twisted by capitalism, of course, I think about it as Leeway's paying me to do some art. And I will spend time during the week honoring that. I also just filed my taxes, and as a self-employed person with many contract gigs, Leeway is paying for a lot of those self-employment taxes and estimated taxes, and otherwise I would really have to be scrambling to do that right now.
And also, I'm sorry, and it also made I was able to help a lot of my family members in small ways that, you know, that they have been there for us all these years. So I was also able to contribute to help them in what seemingly small ways, but it was a big thing to them. So that was it just made me feel really, really good about that.
Any other questions? Well, I want to thank you all for being here, and thank you to Leeway to inviting me, and thank you, Gabe, for these incredible questions. We want to invite folks to grab a hard copy app and informational materials on the table. And also, if you're interested, as Debbie kept mentioning, to sign up for that one-on-one applicant support. You can do that outside as well. So thank you.
Thank you,
Go for it.
Maori.
Thank you, Maori.
Thank you.